There are secrets in the universe that never make a sound. They only touch the heart like soft ripples in a windless night. Coral reefs, the forests beneath the sea, are not only sanctuaries of life, they are the ocean's diary, where every ray of sunlight and every breath of the earth is written in the sweetest colors. In this video, you will be guided into sleep by scientific wonders as gentle as mist, yet powerful enough to open quiet doors inside your imagination. I promise. If you let your shoulders loosen, if you listen slowly, you will feel the beauty of this world in a completely new way. If you love drifting between science and meditation, please leave a soft like, a warm subscribe, like sending a tiny signal into the night sky. And now, let us float onward to the next question. Why can the winds on Neptune break the sound barrier? There are moments when the universe feels less like a vast machinery of physics and more like a slow, breathing poem. And in those moments, when the mind softens and the heart listens, science reveals a tenderness that is often overlooked. Even the harshest storms of the cosmos carry a kind of beauty if you know how to lean into their rhythm. Let them unfold. Let them teach. As the great astrophysicist Carl Sagan once whispered into the world, somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known. When we speak of extreme weather on distant planets, we are not merely reciting data. We are reading the emotional climate of worlds far older and stranger than our own. Neptune, the silent blue sentinel at the edge of our system, hosts winds that slice through its atmosphere faster than the speed of sound. It is a place where storms do not roar. They sing, vibrating through layers of methane and ice in a pulse that feels more like a heartbeat than a hurricane. What fascinates me is not just the force of these winds, but the quiet contradiction they carry. How can a world so far from the sun, so cold, so dim, explode with such violent motion? A planetary scientist once told me, distance is not silence. And I find that thought profoundly human, a reminder that even in our darkest seasons, energy still lives within us. Neptune emits more heat than it receives. The universe's way of showing that some worlds generate their own fire, their own resilience, their own rhythm. But the strangeness does not end there. Venus, forever cloaked in toxic beauty, spins backwards, as though trying to unwind some forgotten cosmic memory. Its day lasts longer than its year, an elegant reminder that time is not universal. It stretches, folds, and breathes differently depending on where you stand. When I reflect on Venus, I think of moments in life when everything seems to move against the current, when progress feels reversed. And yet, like Venus, we continue spinning, choosing our own speed, our own direction. The sun itself is no stranger to mystery. It sings, trembling like a cosmic musical instrument, releasing waves that ripple through the solar system. The surface may look calm, but beneath it, pressure and plasma dance in a choreography older than humanity. Astronomer helioseismology pioneer Jørgen Christensen Dalsgaard once said, "To listen to the sun is to listen to the past speaking through fire." And yet the corona, the outermost layer, burns millions of degrees hotter than the surface itself. It is a paradox that has humbled scientists for generations. A reminder that what lies on the outside can be far more intense than what appears within. I find comfort in this, in knowing that sometimes our brightest energy doesn't come from our core, but from the outer edges of what we show the world. When we shift our gaze toward Jupiter, its great red spot still swirls. A storm older than our telescopes. A storm older than our civilizations. Older than most of what we consider history. Yet it endures, shrinking, changing, but refusing to fade. There is something profoundly spiritual about a storm that persists across centuries, as though it carries the memory of every gust, every rotation, every echo in Jupiter's vast atmosphere. And the sun's dark spots, those fleeting freckles of magnetism, appear and vanish in quiet cycles. They are a soft reminder that even the brightest stars go through rhythms of shadow and light, rising, resting, renewing. As for comets, the ancient storytellers of the solar system, their tails always stretch away from the sun, not because of motion, but because of light itself. Solar wind pushes the dust, sculpting these icy travelers into luminous feathers drifting through space. To me, a comet tail is the universe's softest metaphor. You are shaped not by where you came from, but by the energy you meet along your path. And when solar flares erupt, striking our magnetic field, they can silence satellites, disrupt electricity, or paint the sky with auroras so bright they feel like whispers from another world. These moments remind us that we are still vulnerable, still connected to forces greater than ourselves. As physicist James Van Allen once said, "Space is not remote at all. It is part of the Earth. It flows through us." In many ways, studying extreme planetary weather has taught me more about humanity than about the planets themselves. Because every storm out there mirrors a storm within us. Neptune's wild winds echo the moments our emotions outrun logic. Venus's backward spin reminds us that healing sometimes means turning in the opposite direction. Jupiter's ancient cyclone teaches the endurance of unresolved feelings. The sun's corona shows that our outermost layers can hold unexpected intensity. And comet tails remind us that we are always being shaped by invisible forces. If anything, these cosmic weather patterns feel like gentle teachers, guiding us back to humility, back to wonder, back to the art of listening. And it is the same tenderness we find in soothing coral reef facts. Those calming reminders that the universe is not only vast, but also delicate, intricate, and alive in ways that echo our own internal landscapes. My personal reflection after years of studying these celestial tempests is simple. The universe does not rush, does not force, does not fear its own storms. And maybe that is the lesson we are meant to learn: to breathe slower, to trust our cycles, to embrace turbulence not as punishment but as transformation. So, as you drift deeper into this journey, let the winds of Neptune, the fires of the Sun, and the quiet revolutions of Venus wrap around you like a slow cosmic lullaby. Let them remind you that you are part of something vast and ancient, something that breathes with you. And let the final thought settle gently in your chest, like a soft star landing on water. The universe is not chaos. It is choreography. And every storm is simply another step in the dance. There are mysteries in the architecture of planets that feel less like scientific puzzles and more like long, ancient sighs breathed from the stone and fire of the universe itself. When I drift through these questions, I often feel as though each world is whispering not its history, but its memory. The Great Canyon of Mars, Valles Marineris, stretching as wide as the entire United States, is not merely a scar. It is the echo of a planet once filled with heat, tension, and restless interior movement. Some scientists believe it was torn open by the cooling and cracking of the Martian crust. Others imagine ancient floods or tectonic stress. But to me, it feels like a reminder that even silent worlds can break from the weight of their own past. Nearby, Olympus Mons rises 3 times higher than Everest, a mountain so enormous that its base would cover countries. It grew because Mars lacks plate tectonics, so a single volcanic hotspot kept pouring fire in the same place for millions of years. I once heard a planetary geologist say, "Olympus Mons is what happens when a planet decides to build a monument to its own patience." I carry that thought with me whenever I feel rushed, as though this mountain teaches us that greatness is often the result of quiet, consistent pressure, the kind that shapes worlds while no one is watching. Earth, in contrast, is the only planet we know with living, breathing tectonic plates. They slide, collide, and sink beneath one another, recycling the surface of our world like a slow planetary heartbeat. This motion creates continents, mountains, earthquakes, and oceans. It is the restless engine that keeps our world alive, both in geology and in biology. As geophysicist Tanya Atwater said, "Plate tectonics is the story of Earth learning to breathe. Without this breath, Earth might be as still and silent as Mars. Venus, shimmering in golden poison, offers a different kind of silence. It lacks a magnetic field, exposing its atmosphere to the solar wind. Some believe Venus lost its magnetic protection when its internal rotation slowed, its core cooling, its dynamo fading into quiet. I have always found this haunting, as though Venus is a beautiful violin whose strings have loosened over time." Carl Sagan once said, "Venus is a warning, a world with the right ingredients but the wrong balance." And that makes me reflect on how fragile equilibrium can be, not just in planets, but within ourselves. Mercury, small, scorched, and trembling near the sun, holds a mystery of its own. Its iron core is disproportionately large, as though the planet lost its outer layers in a cosmic collision long ago. When I imagine this, I see a world stripped down to its essence. A reminder that sometimes what remains after destruction is not emptiness, but truth. Then there is Saturn, the planet so light in density that it would float in an ocean large enough to hold it. If such an ocean existed, its composition speaks of hydrogen, helium, and delicate layering. A world built more from breath than from stone. Astronomer Linda Spilker once remarked, "Saturn is a world carved from softness." And sometimes, I believe softness is its own form of strength. Uranus, quiet, pale, enigmatic, rolls around the sun like a ball pushed onto its side. Its 98-degree tilt likely came from a violent impact in its youth. But the way it continues spinning, serene and slow, makes it feel more like a dancer surrendering to an unusual choreography than a world broken. This is one of those cosmic stories that feels almost spiritual to me, as though Uranus teaches us that even when life knocks us sideways, we can still orbit with grace. The paths that planets follow are not circles, but ellipses, elongated loops shaped by gravity's gentle persuasion. Kepler once described this revelation as thinking God's thoughts after him. To me, the ellipse feels like a lesson in acceptance, that nothing in nature moves in perfect symmetry. Everything stretches, leans, adapts. Even our lives trace elliptical orbits, pulling us closer to some moments, further from others. The rings of planets add another layer of mystery, some of them thin as whispers, some temporary, some shimmering like frozen halos around giants. These rings are built of ice, dust, and shattered moons, always changing, always drifting. As if the planets wear jewelry made from their own memories. The thinness of certain rings, especially those around Uranus and Neptune, reveals a delicate gravitational dance, like silk stretched across space. In my years of studying the geology and structure of planets, I've learned that every world carries both violence and beauty. And often, the more catastrophic its history, the more poetic its scars. It reminds me of something planetary scientist Sarah Hurst once said: "Planets are not just objects. They are stories written in rock and time." These stories encourage me to see the universe not as a cold mechanism, but as a tapestry woven with breath, memory, and rhythm. And when I meditate on these distant mysteries, I feel the same calming presence I sense when listening to a coral reef sleep video, where the ocean's heartbeat becomes a lullaby. The planets, too, seem to hum with their own sleeping breaths. The lesson I return to again and again is that nothing in the universe forms perfectly, but everything forms meaningfully. Mars cracks. Venus softens. Earth breathes. Mercury endures. Saturn floats. Uranus tilts. And all of them continue their ancient dance without apology. And perhaps that is the wisdom hidden in planetary geology, that we too are shaped by pressures, collisions, tilts, and quiet internal fires. But none of these make us broken. They make us real. So, as your mind drifts with this soft cosmic tide, let these planetary secrets settle gently within you. A reminder that every world, every life, every orbit is a form of quiet, resilient poetry. There are stories in the origins of planets and moons that feel less like scientific histories and more like ancient lullabies whispered by the cosmos itself. When I let my mind drift into these mysteries, I often feel the same calm I experience when listening to relaxing ocean science. That soft rhythm where knowledge and peace flow as one. And in that stillness, the birth of worlds begins to reveal its secrets. Neptune, the far, cold, blue guardian at the edge of our system, was not found by sight first, but by thought. It emerged from equations, from the tremble in Uranus's orbit, from numbers that refuse to stay quiet. The mathematicians Urbain Le Verrier and John Couch Adams sensed something tugging at Uranus, an invisible hand in the dark. Le Verrier famously said, "I will show you where the planet must be." And he did, with nothing more than logic, persistence, and the courage to believe in what the eyes could not yet see. To me, this discovery is a reminder that intuition and intellect can meet like two currents of the same cosmic tide. Uranus, unlike Neptune, revealed itself through a telescope, a faint disk mistaken at first for a star. It was William Herschel, a musician turned astronomer, who recognized something different in that soft, bluish point of light. When he finally understood what he had found, he whispered, "This is a curious star indeed." And the world changed. I find something incredibly poetic in the idea that a musician discovered a planet, as though the universe allowed itself to be heard through someone who understood harmony long before he understood astronomy. The moons add their own chapters to this cosmic tale. Triton, Neptune's largest moon, spins backward, defying the direction of Neptune's rotation. This strange choreography hints at a violent past, a captured world pulled from elsewhere, held in Neptune's gravity like a memory that refuses to drift away. Triton is a wanderer forced into orbit, and every backward turn feels like an echo of where it once belonged. Astronomer William Mackinnon once said, "Triton is a cosmic refugee." And in those words, I hear not tragedy, but resilience. Many moons of Jupiter and Saturn share this fate. They did not form beside their planets. They were taken in, seized by gravity from passing debris, from ancient collisions, from the chaos of the early solar system. To imagine the sky of that era is to imagine a storm of stone and fire, a place where orbits tangled, where worlds drifted like seeds in cosmic wind. Some moons settled gently into place, becoming quiet companions. Others spiraled in violent arcs before finding home. And in their journeys, I see something deeply human, that belonging is sometimes found after drifting, after collision, after surrender. The rings of planets hold secrets too. Within their shimmering bands, moons can be born, sculpted from dust and ice like fragile beads forming on a cosmic necklace. Over time, particles clump, drawn by gravity, growing into larger and larger bodies. Until one day, a moon looks back at the rings it came from, the way a child someday looks back at the sea from which humanity first emerged. Saturn scientist Caroline Porco once said, "To watch a moon form is to watch the universe give birth." And in her voice, I hear awe, reverence, and a kind of love for the cosmos that is rare and precious. Then there is the whisper of Planet 9, a world that might exist, unseen, waiting at the frozen outskirts of our solar system. Something tugs on distant objects, bending their orbits in a pattern too deliberate to ignore. Astronomers Konstantin Batygin and Mike Brown traced this gravitational signature, describing it as a ghost in the dark. The evidence is indirect but persistent, like footprints left on snow long after the traveler is gone. I find the possibility of Planet 9 comforting, not because it is certain, but because it reminds me that our cosmic map is still unfinished, that beyond everything we know, something may still be waiting. As I reflect on all of this, a quiet truth rises within me. The universe does not reveal itself through clarity, but through curiosity. Neptune's calculated discovery, Uranus's accidental unveiling, Triton's backward rebellion, the captured moons, the ring-borne satellites, and the enigmatic tug of Planet 9 all remind me that knowledge is not a straight line. It is a spiral. And in that spiral, I find a lesson carved not in rock, but in silence. That our greatest discoveries often come from paying attention to the things that do not fit, the anomalies, the whispers, the motions that refuse to obey expectations. It is the universe's way of inviting us deeper, of saying there is more, always more. Sometimes, when I speak of these cosmic origins, I imagine the early solar system not as chaos but as choreography. Worlds drifting, colliding, cooling, capturing, surrendering. And I remember the words of astrophysicist Maria Zuber. Every planet is a chapter, but the solar system is the story. I think about how our own lives mimic these celestial beginnings. How we sometimes move in ways that seem erratic, only to realize later that each shift was part of a larger orbit. How we capture and release. How we drift and return. How we form from the debris of our own experiences, becoming something new, something whole. The more I learn about planetary origins, the more I feel that the universe is not trying to overwhelm us with its vastness, but soothe us with its rhythm. Every moon, every planet, every hidden world beyond Neptune seems to breathe in its own slow, patient way. If you listen softly enough, their stories become as calming as waves against a shoreline. And perhaps that is the deepest message these cosmic origins carry. That we too are still forming, still drifting, still shaped by invisible forces. That our lives, like planets, are born not only from fire, but from time, gravity, and the quiet pull of what we cannot yet see. So let the story of these worlds settle gently over you, like dust from a distant moon. And let it remind you that creation is still happening, that discovery is still unfolding, that somewhere beyond the darkness, something is orbiting into view. There are moments when the universe feels less like a distant machinery and more like a quiet ocean of possibilities. And in that stillness, the icy moons of our solar system begin to speak, whispering stories of hidden water, ancient heat, and the quiet hope that life may not be confined to the blue cradle of Earth. Whenever I explore these worlds in my mind, I feel the same peace I sense while watching a calming marine life documentary. That gentle reassurance that nature, even across billions of miles, breathes with purpose. Europa, wrapped in a shell of cracked white ice, hides an ocean so vast that it might contain more water than all of Earth's seas combined. Evidence comes from magnetic readings, from the flexing of its crust, from the warm glow of tides stirred by Jupiter's gravity. Astrobiologist Kevin Hand once said, "If there is life beyond Earth, Europa is one of the best places to look." And every time I think about that, it feels like the moon is not a cold sphere, but a quiet lantern, waiting to be opened. Enceladus, small, bright, and shimmering with ice, sends plumes of water shooting into space like cosmic geysers. These plumes reveal salts, organic molecules, and the unmistakable chemistry of hydrothermal energy. It is as if the moon is exhaling, showing us a glimpse of the warmth beneath its frozen skin. Carolyn Porco, leader of the imaging team for Cassini, once said, "Enceladus is the place where science fiction becomes planetary science." I often replay that quote in my mind, because Enceladus reminds me that life's spark does not need sunlight, only chemistry, water, and patience. Ganymede, the largest moon in the solar system, holds a labyrinth of oceans layered like chapters in a book. Ice, water, ice, water, stacked and folded by pressure and time. Its magnetic field, the only one found around a moon, suggests a churning heart of liquid water deep within. When I imagine Ganymede, I picture a world that is both ancient and young, still rewriting itself beneath the silence. It reminds me that complexity is often hidden, not lost. Callisto, darker and more scarred, offers a quieter mystery. Beneath its battered crust may lie a slow, ancient ocean, not stirred by strong tides like Europa, but preserved like a memory that refuses to fade. Some researchers call Callisto a fossil moon, a relic of an earlier era. And I find something profoundly beautiful in that idea, that even worlds that seem forgotten may carry the ingredients of life. Titan, wrapped in orange haze, rains methane the way Earth rains water. Lakes, rivers, and entire seas of liquid hydrocarbons reflect a chemistry both alien and familiar. To stand on Titan, if we ever could, would be to witness a world running on a different recipe for possibility. Astronomer Sarah Hurst once said, "Titan is not just a moon. It is a laboratory for understanding the origins of life." Titan reminds me that life is not limited by our imagination. only by our willingness to look beyond what we know. Even Pluto, once dismissed as too small, too cold, too distant, hides a mystery beneath its heart-shaped glacier. The region called Sputnik Planitia may insulate a liquid ocean deep below, kept warm by radioactive heat and ancient energy still lingering from its formation. When I think of Pluto's hidden ocean, I feel a kind of tenderness, as if the smallest and loneliest world still keeps a secret ember of warmth. Across all these moons, scientists wonder about hydrothermal vents, those dark, mineral-rich crevices that on Earth host thriving ecosystems in the absence of sunlight. If such vents exist beneath icy crusts, heated by tidal forces and internal friction, they could provide a cradle for life where no star ever shines. As oceanographer Sylvia Earle once said, "Where there is water, there is the possibility of life." And that truth seems to echo louder as we explore the frozen worlds that circle our giant planets. What I find most humbling is how these distant moons mirror earthly seas. Europa's waves trapped beneath ice, Enceladus's geysers reaching like fountains into space, Titan's methane clouds drifting across pale skies. Each one feels like a verse in a cosmic poem, and each one reminds me that life, if it exists beyond Earth, may not shout, but whisper. As I reflect on these worlds, I am struck by a gentle lesson. That life does not demand perfection, only opportunity. Life grows in deep earth trenches, in frozen deserts, in acidic lakes, and perhaps in oceans hidden beneath alien ice. Each moon teaches us that the right conditions can exist in the most unexpected places. Just as oceans on Earth offer sanctuary to creatures we have barely begun to understand, these cosmic oceans may hold stories waiting to rise through fractures, like messages in bottles drifting upward from the dark. The search for these oceans has reshaped my understanding of the universe, not as a barren expanse, but as a garden of frozen seas, each holding a seed of possibility. It reminds me of something Carl Sagan said: "The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. And perhaps we are also made of ocean stuff, shaped by tides, currents, and the ancient memory of water. So let your mind drift, like a small boat on a quiet sea, and imagine these distant oceans breathing beneath their icy shells, warm, dark, alive with possibility. Let the stories of Europa, Enceladus, Ganymede, Callisto, Titan, and Pluto wrap around you like a soft tide. And let them remind you that the universe is not empty. It is listening. It is whispering. It is carrying oceans in places we once believed were only stone and shadow. There are truths about the sun that feel less like scientific facts and more like warm pulses of memory coming from the heart of the universe itself. When I let my thoughts settle into these stories, I feel the same quiet comfort I experience when listening to a coral reef bedtime story. That gentle sense that even the most powerful forces in nature have a softness to them. And as the sun begins to reveal its secrets, it becomes less a star and more a glowing teacher whose lessons move through light, heat, and time. Every second, the sun loses 4 million tons of mass, transformed into light and energy through nuclear fusion. It is a quiet sacrifice, a continual offering that allows life to breathe on Earth. Astrophysicist Arthur Eddington once said, "The sun is a furnace where matter becomes melody." And I have always loved that line, because it reframes fusion not as destruction, but as music, as though every sunrise is a note in an endless song of creation. What fascinates me is how the sun's power also shapes its cycles. Every 11 years, its magnetic field flips, north becoming south, south becoming north. This reversal sends ripples throughout the solar system, influencing solar storms, auroras, and the deep magnetic breath of the star itself. To me, it feels like the sun exhaling, reorganizing its own inner harmony. Solar physicist Eugene Parker once said, "A star must live in constant renewal, or it will not live at all." Those words linger with me, reminding me that transformation is not a disruption, but a natural rhythm. Then there is the journey of sunlight. It takes 8 minutes to reach Earth, traveling across 93 million miles. But the deeper truth is even more astonishing. The photons born in the sun's core spend thousands, even millions of years bouncing inside the star before escaping. When we feel sunlight on our skin, we are feeling the final moment of a journey that began before human civilization existed. It humbles me to think that every warm morning carries the ghost of ancient energy, whispering across time. And beneath all of this, at the center of the sun, lies a furnace of unimaginable temperature. 15 million degrees Celsius. A heat so intense that atoms themselves surrender their boundaries, merging into new forms. This is fusion, the engine that keeps the sun shining, the process that turns hydrogen into helium and mass into light. Carl Sagan once said, "We are star stuff." And those words echo louder when you imagine the sun's core. Because everything we are, every cell, every breath, was once shaped by that stellar fire. Beyond the sun's warmth, beyond its storms, lies a frontier where its influence finally fades. The heliopause, the boundary where the solar wind meets the interstellar medium. It is not a wall, but a soft, trembling edge where the breath of our star touches the breath of the galaxy. Voyager 1 crossed this threshold in 2012, becoming a messenger carrying the sound of two great winds meeting. To me, the heliopause feels like the edge of a lullaby, where a mother's voice fades and the night sky takes over the story. As I drift through these thoughts, I notice how each mystery of the sun loops gently into the next. Fusion creates light. Light carries warmth. Warmth breathes life. Magnetic cycles shift the star's heartbeat, sending pulses through space. The heliopause marks the limit of that pulse, where the sun's presence becomes a whisper instead of a command. All of these truths weave together, forming a tapestry of cosmic motion that feels less like science and more like meditation. In my own life, the sun teaches a lesson that I return to again and again. That giving energy does not always mean losing it. That change is not chaos, but renewal. That warmth can travel farther than we imagine, reaching hearts and places we may never see. And that boundaries, like the heliopause, are not endings, but transitions. When I speak of the sun, I do not think only of physics, but of presence. Its steady burn has watched over Earth since the beginning, over oceans forming, continents breaking, life rising from silence. Every species that has ever lived, every civilization that has ever existed, has grown under its patient glow. It is a reminder of endurance, devotion, and constancy. Sometimes, I wonder what it would feel like to stand at the heliopause, to feel the last touch of solar warmth before stepping into the deeper cold between stars. I imagine it would feel like holding the hand of someone you love, then gently letting go. Not in sadness, but in trust. Because the universe, like the sun, invites us to grow beyond the familiar. And perhaps that is why learning about the sun feels so profoundly human. Its cycles mirror our own seasons. Its storms echo our internal tempests. Its light reminds us that even the smallest flame can illuminate vast distances. So let your mind drift with the solar wind, gently, slowly. Let the warmth of the sun settle into your chest, not as heat, but as understanding. Let its ancient light remind you that you are part of a story billions of years old, written in fire, carried by photons, delivered to you across 8 minutes of timelessness. And as you rest here in this cosmic stillness, remember that the sun does not rise. It does not set. It simply shines. And perhaps, in its quiet consistency, it teaches us how to shine too. There is a quiet poetry woven into the way planets move, a rhythm older than language, older than life, older even than sunlight touching Earth for the first time. Whenever I reflect on orbital mysteries, I feel the same peace as when I listen to an ocean meditation for sleep. That slow, breathing tide that reminds me the universe is not chaos, but choreography. Pluto offers one of my favorite stories in this cosmic dance. Although it sometimes moves closer to the Sun than Neptune, it never collides. Their orbits lock together through a resonance, a synchronized pattern where Pluto completes 2 trips around the Sun for every 3 of Neptune's. It is as if the 2 worlds made a quiet agreement long ago, promising to dance but never touch. Neil deGrasse Tyson once said, "The universe is under no obligation to make sense to you." But the Pluto-Neptune resonance feels like the universe whispering that some forms of order exist even when logic falters. Then there is Earth's moon, drifting away from us at a pace of 3.8 centimeters per year. A farewell so gentle we do not feel it. This slow retreat comes from tidal forces, from the friction between Earth's oceans and the moon's pull. In a way, our oceans are pushing the moon outward, giving it a nudge with every tide. When I think of this, I picture a child slowly stepping away from the hands of a parent, not in rebellion, but in natural growth. A reminder that distance does not always mean loss. Sometimes it means evolution. Mercury tells a more profound tale. For decades, astronomers were puzzled by the strange shift in its orbit. A small deviation no classical physics could explain. Then Einstein arrived, offering general relativity, a new way of seeing gravity not as a force, but as the curvature of space-time. Mercury's orbit fit perfectly into this new vision, becoming one of the first real-world confirmations of his theory. As Einstein himself said, "The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious," and Mercury's motion feels like a mystery unfolding into truth. Some asteroids carry their own moons, tiny companions captured by chance, orbiting fragments held by the faint whisper of gravity. These miniature systems remind me that complexity is not reserved for giants. Even small bodies can form relationships, can hold each other, can orbit in quiet harmony. It feels almost tender, the way 2 pieces of rock drifting through infinity can find a way to stay together. Mars and Earth both carry the rhythm of seasons, not because of their distance from the Sun, but because they tilt, leaning gently as they move through the sky. This tilt shapes light, temperature, wind, and life itself. On Mars, seasons are longer, colder, harsher, but they echo the same celestial heartbeat that writes spring and winter on Earth. And in that echo, I hear a reminder that worlds separated by millions of miles can still share the same cosmic pulse. What moves me most is how all these phenomena connect. Pluto's careful resonance, the Moon's slow escape, Mercury's relativistic glide, the asteroid moonlets, the seasonal tilt of planets. Each one reveals a layer of gravitational intimacy, the way celestial bodies respond to each other, influence each other, guide each other. The universe is not silent. It hums with relationships. Whenever I teach or write about these interactions, I find myself returning to a quiet realization that gravity is less a force and more a form of connection, a deep, unseen thread that binds everything that exists. Even Einstein called gravity the curvature of companionship in a poetic moment. And I have always believed that if we truly understood gravity, we would understand not only the movement of planets, but the subtle ways life tugs on itself. As I reflect on these orbital mysteries, I feel the universe encouraging a lesson of patience. Everything moves slowly, gradually, in cycles, longer than our lifetimes. The Moon drifts away over billions of years. Pluto and Neptune weave their resonance across ages. Mercury glides through space-time as though tracing a secret known only to stars. And even seasons, the markers of our yearly lives, a part of planetary dances that began long before we opened our eyes to the sky. In this slow choreography, I find comfort, because it reminds me that change does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it arrives with the gentleness of a moon drifting 3.8 centimeters a year, or a planet adjusting its path in silence, or an asteroid finding a companion in the dark. The universe teaches us that every movement matters, even the smallest. I often imagine what it would feel like to float in space, watching these motions unfold, drifting in stillness while worlds turn, tilt, and glide. In those moments, the mind becomes quiet, as if joining the dance. And perhaps that is why reflecting on orbital dynamics feels almost meditative, because it mirrors the slow shifts within ourselves. Pluto keeps its distance not by force, but by rhythm. The Moon leaves not by rejection, but by evolution. Mercury proves truth not by loudness, but by precision. Asteroids carry moons because even in the vast dark, companionship emerges. Mars and Earth share seasons because their hearts lean in similar ways. It is all connected, quietly, patiently. So let the dance of these worlds settle into your breathing. Slow, steady. Let the resonance of Pluto, the drifting of the Moon, the tilt of planets guide your thoughts into softer places. Let the gravity between celestial bodies remind you of the unseen threads that shape your own life. And as you drift deeper into this cosmic calm, feel the universe whisper that everything has its orbit, and everything, including you, is moving exactly as it should. There are nights when the universe feels less like a vast machinery of equations and more like a slow, breathing dream. In those moments, when the mind softens and the stars seem closer, the strange objects of our solar system begin to reveal themselves not as cold stones, but as characters in a cosmic lullaby. I often revisit these mysteries the way someone might return to gentle science facts to fall asleep. Truths that are soothing not because they are simple, but because they show how beautifully unpredictable our universe can be. Take Uranus and Neptune, those pale blue giants sitting quietly in the frozen deep of the solar system. Beneath their calm exteriors, pressures rise to such staggering extremes that carbon atoms can be squeezed into diamonds, forming sparkling crystals that fall like rain through the dark. The idea of diamond showers is not fantasy, but physics. A reminder that even in the coldest places, the universe still knows how to make beauty from pressure. Astronomer Catherine McCormick once said, "The cosmos writes its poetry in matter." And diamond rain feels like one of its most delicate verses. Closer to home, the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter tells a different kind of story. Many imagine it as a dense field of tumbling boulders, but the truth is far more tranquil. The space between asteroids is enormous, so wide that spacecraft have flown through the belt without so much as a scratch. The belt is sparse because Jupiter's immense gravity prevented a planet from forming there, stretching the belt into a thin, drifting population of ancient fragments. To me, this sparseness feels peaceful, like a reminder that what appears chaotic from afar is often gentle up close. Some asteroids are not solid bodies at all, but rubble piles, fragile collections of rocks barely held together by gravity. These objects reveal how delicate the solar system can be, how easily collisions can shatter a world into pieces that continue drifting together like a family of stones. Planetary scientist Dante Lauretta once described them as memory objects, holding fragments of the solar system's earliest days. And when I imagine these rubble piles, I feel a soft recognition that sometimes wholeness is not the same as solidity. Then there is Ceres, the small, rounded world that sits between identities. Not quite an asteroid, not quite a planet, but something in between, a dwarf planet. Ceres holds water ice, minerals, and perhaps even briny pockets beneath its crust. It stands as a reminder that categories in science are often conveniences, not truths. I find comfort in that, because it mirrors the way people can hold multiple stories in themselves, never fully fitting one definition. Pluto, wandering on its elongated path, carries a secret of its own. It has an atmosphere that comes and goes, appearing when Pluto moves closer to the Sun and vanishing when it drifts into the cold. The nitrogen freezes, falls to the ground, and then sublimates again during its brief, warmer years. It is an atmosphere that breathes in centuries, expanding and contracting in cycles far longer than human lives. I often think of Pluto as a storyteller whose voice fades and returns, a reminder that not all rhythms match our own. And then there is Titan, Saturn's largest moon, wrapped in gold and haze. It has lakes and seas, not of water but of methane, rivers that carve its surface, and storms that carry droplets of hydrocarbons from sky to sand. To stand on Titan would be to stand in a world that feels both familiar and alien, where liquid shapes the land just as it does on Earth, yet follows completely different rules. Astrobiologist Chris McKay once said, "Titan is Earth-like not in substance, but in spirit." And I believe that sentiment captures its essence perfectly. What connects all these strange worlds is not their differences, but the quiet truth they reveal, that the universe is endlessly inventive, shaping matter into forms we could never anticipate. Diamond rain, sparse asteroid fields, rubble pile bodies, hybrid dwarf planets, breathing atmospheres, methane seas. Each one a gentle reminder that our solar system is not a static place, but a living symphony of transformations. As a scientist, I find these oddities grounding. They remind me that the universe does not owe us predictability, and yet it offers patterns, rhythms, and beauty in unexpected places. They remind me that strangeness is not a flaw, but a sign of diversity, of creativity. And they remind me that science is not merely an accumulation of facts, but a practice of listening, of observing, of letting wonder guide the mind toward deeper understanding. The more time I spend contemplating these unusual worlds, the more I feel a lesson forming beneath the facts. That sometimes the things that appear broken, fractured, or inconsistent are the ones with the richest stories. A rubble pile asteroid still holds together, despite its fragility. Pluto still breathes even in the coldest dark. Ceres still claims its place even when labels cannot contain it. And Titan still flows with liquid seas even when sunlight cannot melt ice. Perhaps that is why these strange worlds feel so comforting. They show us that there is beauty in difference, strength in vulnerability, and harmony in the unexpected. They teach us that being unusual is not a deviation from order, but another expression of it. So let your mind drift across these distant shapes, like a leaf floating across a quiet cosmic tide. Let the diamond storms of Neptune, the wide silence of the asteroid belt, the soft fragility of rubble piles, the shifting air of Pluto, and the methane seas of Titan wrap around you like a slow, celestial lullaby. And let them remind you that the universe does not simply exist. It dreams. There are discoveries so profound that they feel less like achievements of engineering and more like quiet meditations whispered across the vastness of space. When I think about the spacecraft that have left Earth's embrace, the ones that wandered into darkness, carrying our questions like small lanterns, I feel the same calm I sense while watching a deep-sea relaxing documentary. That slow descent into mystery, that gentle reminder that the unknown is not something to fear, but something to lean toward. Voyager is often the first story that comes to my mind. Those two golden travelers, launched in the late 70s, have now slipped beyond the heliopause, crossing the boundary where the sun's influence fades into the broader breadth of the galaxy. They escaped the solar system not through brute force, but through grace, using gravitational assists, slingshots around Jupiter and Saturn that gifted them speed. It feels almost poetic that the same planets they photographed helped push them toward the stars. Astronomer Ed Stone once said, "Voyager is humanity's message in a bottle to the cosmos." And every time I imagine those spacecraft drifting through interstellar night, I feel a softness in my chest. A reminder that we are capable of sending parts of ourselves farther than we could ever travel alone. If Voyager moved outward with quiet dignity, Parker Solar Probe moved inward with fearless intensity. It became the first spacecraft to touch the sun's atmosphere, diving through the corona where temperatures soar and magnetic waves twist like living things. To survive, it carries a heat shield so strong it can withstand fire that would destroy almost anything else humans have built. When Parker skimmed the sun, it did not simply gather data. It listened. It traced magnetic switchbacks, tasted particles, felt the texture of solar wind as though running a hand through a river of fire. Solar physicist Noor Rawafi said, "For the first time, the sun is speaking to us in its own voice." And I often wonder what it means to hear a star, not in metaphor, but in measurement. While Parker draws close, Hubble watches from afar, orbiting Earth with a patience that feels almost monastic. From this quiet vantage point, it has captured images of planets in our solar system with a clarity no ground telescope can match. Jupiter's swirling storms, Saturn's delicate rings, Mars blushing with dust storms. Even Neptune and Uranus, worlds once seen only as faint blue dots, have revealed their tempests and mysteries to Hubble's steady gaze. Astronaut John Grunsfeld once called Hubble the telescope that taught humanity to look up again. And I feel that truth every time I see one of its images. to windows not only into space, but into our collective longing to understand. But discovery is not only something that happens out there, in the dark. Sometimes pieces of other worlds come to us. Meteorites from Mars have landed on Earth, carrying within them chemical tales of volcanic heat, ancient lakes, and thin Martian breezes. These rocks were ejected from Mars when giant impacts struck its surface, launching fragments into space, some wandering for millions of years before finally falling onto our planet. They are messages not written in ink, but in minerals. A reminder that the universe is not a collection of isolated islands, but a network of drifting stories. What ties all these discoveries together, for me, is the gentle realization that exploration is not always loud, not always heroic in the cinematic sense. Sometimes it is the quiet perseverance of machines traveling alone for decades, or the patient orbit of a telescope staring into darkness, or the slow fall of a Martian rock through Earth's sky. Each one carries the same message. That understanding comes through presence, through listening, through curiosity held softly over time. I often find myself reflecting on what these spacecraft teach us about ourselves. Voyager reminds us that journeys can continue long after we believe they are over. That momentum built early in life can carry us into places we never expected. Parker teaches us that sometimes we must move directly into heat, into difficulty, into the heart of our fears to discover what we are made of. Hubble shows us that distance does not weaken clarity, that stepping back can reveal patterns too large to understand from within. And Martian meteorites whisper that even when broken, even when scattered, pieces of a world can still find their way home. There is a softness in these truths, a kind of cosmic compassion, reminding us that exploration is not an escape from ourselves, but a return. Every spacecraft we send is a reflection of our desire to reach, to touch, to know. And every discovery is an answer delivered in its own time. Sometimes, when I picture Voyager drifting beyond the heliopause, or Parker skimming a star, or Hubble gazing across centuries of light, I feel as though the universe is breathing with me. Slow, steady, luminous. It reminds me that wonder is a kind of meditation, that curiosity is a form of compassion, and that every time we look outward, we are also looking inward. So let your mind drift with these spacecraft, like a leaf floating along a silent cosmic tide. Let the quiet bravery of Voyager, the fearless descent of Parker, the patient clarity of Hubble, and the wandering stories of Martian meteorites settle into your breath. Let them remind you that exploration does not require haste, only openness. And as you drift deeper into this soft expanse, Feel the universe whisper that every question sent outward eventually finds its way back, carrying not only knowledge, but peace. There are nights when I think about water, ice, and air the way someone might think about old memories. Softly, carefully, as though each molecule carries a piece of our cosmic story. In those moments, drifting in the same calm I feel when listening to coral reef ASMR science, the mysteries of planetary atmospheres begin to unfold like a quiet meditation. Earth is the first world I turn to. The only planet we know where water exists in all three states at the same time. Ice on mountains, liquid in oceans, vapor gliding through our skies. This delicate balance is not an accident, but a symphony shaped by temperature, pressure, and the steady warmth of a star that keeps us just close enough. Carl Sagan once said, "Earth is a world bathed in oceans." And I often feel that the presence of water in all its forms is not just chemistry, but a kind of quiet blessing. Yet as soon as we venture outward, the rules begin to bend. Mercury, the scorched world closest to the sun, hides frozen water in the permanent shadows of its polar craters. It is strange at first, almost contradictory. But these deep pockets never see sunlight, not for billions of years. In that eternal darkness, ice can survive, untouched, unmelted. When I think of that, I feel a kind of cosmic tenderness, a reminder that even the hottest places can hold cold secrets. The atmospheres of planets tell a different story, a story of escape. For every world with air, there is a slow, steady leak of particles drifting into space. Gravity tries to hold them, but heat gives them energy, and little by little they slip away. Earth protects its air with a magnetic field, shielding us from solar wind that would otherwise strip the sky bare. Mars, lacking such protection, lost most of its atmosphere long ago. Planetary scientist Bruce Jakosky once said, "Atmospheres are fragile things." And when I reflect on that, I realize how delicate our home truly is. And then there is Venus, a world that seems to defy intuition, farther from the sun than Mercury, yet hotter by far. Its dense carbon dioxide atmosphere traps heat so efficiently that its surface becomes an inferno, hotter than many ovens on Earth. The thick clouds reflect light, but they also imprison warmth, turning the planet into a mirror-lined furnace. I often think of Venus not as a failure of nature, but as a warning, a reminder of what happens when balance is lost. Astrophysicist Stephen Hawking once said, "Venus is an example of runaway greenhouse effect, where it is too late to stop it." Those words stay with me, echoing more urgently the older I get. As I move from world to world in my mind, I feel the gentle threads that connect them. Earth's 3 forms of water, Mercury's hidden ice, Venus's crushing heat, Mars's evaporating sky. Each one is a reflection of temperature, gravity, sunlight, and time. And each one reminds me that atmosphere is not just air, but identity. When I explain these things to people, I try to highlight not just the science, but the feeling beneath it. Water deciding how to exist. Ice surviving in eternal night. Air choosing to stay or to leave. It feels almost like personality, like the planets themselves are expressing who they are through temperature and chemistry. The more I learn, the more I feel a quiet truth forming beneath the surface. That water, ice, and air are not just materials. They are storytellers. They carry the history of worlds, the whispered decisions of stars, the fragile balance between chaos and order. Earth holds all 3 states because we stand in the gentle middle, warmed enough for oceans, cooled enough for ice. Mercury hides ice because darkness can be more powerful than heat. Atmospheres leak because nothing in the universe is truly permanent. Everything drifts. Everything becomes something else. And Venus burns because light is not always gentle. Sometimes it becomes too much. These lessons echo far beyond planetary science. They remind me that balance is precious, that protection matters, that conditions can change gradually until they change completely. They remind me that extremes often hide softness, and that gentleness can disappear if not cared for. Sometimes, when I think of Mercury's polar ice, locked in shadow for billions of years, I imagine the quiet of those craters, a silence beyond anything on Earth. And then I think of Venus, wrapped in storms, burning hotter than logic would expect. The contrast between the two teaches me that proximity does not define destiny. It is the internal chemistry, the atmosphere, the history of each world that shapes its story. As we drift deeper into this meditation, the planets feel less like distant stones and more like reflections of ourselves, carrying warmth, carrying storms, carrying secrets preserved in shadows. And perhaps that is why studying atmospheres brings such peace. It reminds us that we too exist in layers, that we too shift between states, that we too are shaped by forces we sometimes cannot see. So let your breath settle, slow and soft. Let the stories of water and ice and air wrap around you like a thin, shimmering atmosphere of your own. Let Earth's balance, Mercury's shadows, Venus's heat, and the drifting skies of distant worlds guide you deeper into calm. And as you rest in this cosmic quiet, feel the universe whisper that every world, including yours, is shaped by the way it holds its breath. There are mysteries so large that when we speak of them, our voices instinctively soften. They stretch across distances too vast for intuition, wrapping around our solar system like a blanket of quiet wonder. When I think about these galactic-scale secrets, I feel the same serenity I experienced during a sleep aid ocean documentary. That gentle descent into depth, that slow unfolding of truth. One of these mysteries is the interstellar cloud we are drifting through. A thin, ghost-like veil of gas and dust called the local interstellar cloud, spanning light years across. Our solar system moves through it like a ship sailing into a mist so faint that sunlight still shines easily through it. And yet, even something so subtle can shape our heliosphere, compressing it, altering the boundary between solar wind and the galaxy beyond. Astrophysicist Merav Ofer once said, "The interstellar medium is not emptiness. It is the place where galaxies breathe." I often think about that line, because it reframes this cloud not as a void, but as a vast inhale. As we drift through this cosmic breath, the solar system continues its larger journey, orbiting the Milky Way in a slow, ancient circle. It takes about 220 million years for us to complete one revolution, a galactic year. The last time we were in this same position, dinosaurs walked the Earth. The next time we return, the continents will have shifted, the oceans reshaped, and humanity will be something new. Neil deGrasse Tyson once reminded us, "We are part of the universe, and the universe is in us." And when I imagine our solar system riding the spiral arms of the galaxy, I feel that truth settling into me like a tide. Within this vast orbit lies another enigma, one that surrounds us in a sphere so large that we may never see it directly. The Oort Cloud, a shell of icy bodies extending up to a light year away. It marks the outermost echo of our solar system's birth. These icy remnants drift loosely bound by the sun's gravity, like forgotten memories circling at the edge of consciousness. When stars pass close to us, their gravity can disturb these distant bodies, sending some inward as comets. Long, glowing messengers reminding us that even the farthest places can still touch us. Jan Oort, the astronomer who first proposed this cloud, described it not as a place, but as a reservoir of origins. The solar system keeps its history in the cold, he said, and I have carried that sentence with me for years. In those words, I hear both science and poetry, because the Oort Cloud truly is a memory field, a place where the earliest fragments of our formation sleep in darkness. The more I reflect on these immense structures, the more I feel the threads that tie them together. The interstellar cloud shaping the heliosphere, the slow orbit carving our path around the galaxy, the Oort Cloud preserving ancient ice at the edge of the sun's reach. Each one is a different expression of motion, boundaries, and memory. And each one reminds me that scale does not diminish meaning. Sometimes, when I teach these topics, people ask how we can understand things so large. My answer is always the same. We don't understand them with familiarity. We understand them with humility. These galactic structures ask us to step back, to allow our minds to expand without the need to grasp everything tightly. They ask us to listen the way we listen to oceans, letting the rhythm sink in through repetition. In my own quiet moments, I sometimes imagine our solar system from the outside. A small, glowing circle drifting through a vast, shimmering galaxy. I imagine the gentle push of interstellar material, the slow arc of our orbit, the distant icy bodies at the edge of everything we call home. And I feel a softness inside me. The same softness I feel when waves collapse at the shore during a late-night meditation. These mysteries teach profound lessons. The interstellar cloud teaches that even the faintest environments shape us. The galactic orbit teaches that movement can be meaningful even when it is slow. And the Oort Cloud teaches that origins matter, that the beginnings we forget still accompany us, quietly, patiently. What I find most beautiful is how these truths mirror our inner worlds. We too move through invisible environments that shape us. We too orbit through cycles so large we only understand them in hindsight. We too carry memories far from our center, memories that wake up when disturbed. The cosmos does not simply surround us, it reflects us. So let your breath slow, like the solar system easing its way around the Milky Way. Let the interstellar cloud drift across your awareness, soft as dust on a distant breeze. Let the Oort Cloud wrap around you like a halo of forgotten beginnings. And as you rest in this cosmic quiet, feel the universe whisper that no journey is too large, no distance too vast, no mystery too deep. Everything moves with purpose, even when the rhythm is too slow for us to see.